you for being here, and let's get started with our first panel. Welcome to Georgia, Rooting Down and Visioning Forward. We are deeply honored to welcome Tamieka Atkins, who is the Executive Director of ProGeorgia and Six Action's outgoing C4 Board Chair. She is a powerhouse organizer in the state and will be leading a conversation with an amazing set of leaders. We have Senator Hillman Frazier, Representative Lydia Glaize, Ashley Henderson, and Greisa Martínez Rosas, who will be now welcomed to the stage.
All right. Great. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Let me try that one more time. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. All right, because we in Georgia. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to be here today. It is great seeing all of you as we celebrate State Innovation Exchange and their 10 years of power building, advocacy, and power building here in Georgia and national. Give me a second, y'all. Let me start over. I should do better, I'm on the board. We're here to celebrate 10 years of State Innovation Exchange's work. There are not that many spaces where you have activists, organizers, and legislators power building together. There is something special here. Okay. We have a lot to unpack in this moment. Yeah. This gathering could not have come at a better time. We are facing some unprecedented political challenges. We are facing steep structural inequities here in Georgia and across our country. And also, we, all of you and the people on this panel, continue to demonstrate what is possible, what is powerful, what is likely when movements are led by people who are rooted in community, vision, and most importantly, courage. The power of people-centered movements is essentially why I joined Six's board. That and Neha and Jesse called me in the middle of providing meals for my children, and we're like, we're gonna make this talk. We're gonna make this talk work because it matters, collaborative governance, it has to be real, and it's a conversation that has to happen in the South. This whole moment here is to talk about the power of collaborative governance. That is where we are at. Collaborative governance is the way forward. And I have the honor of being on a panel with activists, organizers, and legislators to dig a little bit deeper into collaborative governance, power building, and how it all works together. So I'm gonna very quickly introduce some of the folks in front of me. To my immediate left, Senator Hillman Frazier, who represents District 27 in the Mississippi State Senate and is a progressive legislator who has served in both the House and the Senate. Ask me for how long? How long? Over 45 years. Neha and Jesse mentioned Six's cohort for rural opportunity and prosperity, CROP. And Senator Frazier is an integral member of CROP. Next is Representative Lydia Glaize, a former educator and esteemed community leader, and serves as the House Representative for Georgia's 67th District. Come on, Georgia. Okay. Representative Lydia's Glaize has shown her dedication to sustainable solutions, community outreach, and most importantly, education and education access. Next is Ashley Woodard Henderson. I want to make sure I get this right now. Ashley is an Afro-Latin. Okay? Yeah, okay, I got it. Black Appalachian. I love it. Afro-Latin from the working class, born and raised in Southeast Tennessee. Ashley is the first Black woman to serve as co-executive director of the Highlander Research and Education Center in Tennessee. Is a member of multiple leadership teams in the Movement for Black Lives, has been a leader in the Breath Act, is an active leader of the Frontline, and essentially is someone that I'm proud to call a friend. Hi, Greisa. Greisa Martínez Rosas. Greisa is the executive director of United We Dream. Full stop. Okay. United We Dream is the largest immigrant youth-led network in the country with more than 1.2 million members. Greisa is an immigrant rights expert and coalition builder and leads United We Dream in combating both structural racism and immigration and equity in our country. Okay. Those are your amazing panelists. Now, I'm gonna take, is it called point of order? They gave me a mic, y'all. Personal privilege. I'm like, I'm mixing it up with Robert's rules, like, point of order. Forgive me. I want to say just a little bit before we get started. Neha and Jesse talked a little bit about the legacy of transformation and transformative organizing that has already found its roots right here in Atlanta and in Georgia. I don't want to belabor what they shared, but I also want to add some of the critical issues that are facing our state. We rank 49th in the nation for housing affordability. More than half of the renters here pay more than 30% of their annual income to housing. And that comes down to two issues here. That housing issue is two things. One is the lack of affordable housing, right? And then two is the need for a living wage, right? So it's not just the housing, right? In Metro Atlanta, more than 500,000 people live in food deserts. Okay, that means that they lack access to fresh, affordable food. Unemployment among Black Georgians is twice that of white residents. Again, enduring structural inequities. We have one of the highest populations of uninsured individuals, with more than 13% of adults lacking health insurance. And last but not least, our carceral system, it disproportionately impacts Black and brown people. Georgia has the 8th highest incarceration rate in the world. Okay? Out of every 881 Georgia resident, 881 of every 100,000th Georgia resident is touched by the carceral system. That's the statistic. What I want to say right now is that our Department of Justice has also found that the conditions in our jails are abominable, right? I can tell you that, the jails are violating the 8th and 14th Amendments to the US Constitution, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Really what all that boils down to is that people are dying needlessly, people are not being protected, people are being abused and assaulted, and our systems, well, I guess they are doing what they're supposed to do, but what they are not doing is centering the lives of people, particularly Black and brown folks. Now, I shared a lot of not good, feel-good stats. It's reality. And we are here for celebration because it is very easy to only hold on to those statistics. It's very easy to hold on to the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks time as a concept, right? Neha and Jesse listed out so many wins. We cannot forget that. And that's my request to all of you. In spite of, in addition to both the challenges ahead of us, the challenges we are facing here in Georgia and in your own home states, there is still much to celebrate. And being centered in a people-powered movement that is focused on collaborative governance and shared leadership, that's what we're looking for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, for the vision of the kind of world, the kind of country, and the kind of life that we want to live. So, I took my point of privilege. So with that foundation, I want to get us started. I'm going to open it up to any of the panelists, okay? Many of us are living in extreme contexts between some of the statistics I just shared, and then also a lot of opportunity for wins. But these wins do not happen overnight. So my question is, how do we challenge the idea that the only wins that matter are electoral or policy wins? And I'm going to say that also a little different. What has winning in your communities looked like? I'm actually going to start with Senator Frazier.
Thank you, and first of all, happy anniversary 6, and thanks for allowing us to share this space with you. In my area, winning comes in terms of mobilizing your people to be informed about the issue you're addressing. Prime example, you talked about housing. In my legislature, because it was rural dominated, we didn't have a landlord-tenant bill in the legislature, and it was constantly defeated year after year after year by the rural legislators and some of those landlords. So as chairman of the subcommittee, I decided to have a hearing in the community. As opposed to having the hearings at the Capitol, I tried to make it very convenient to our people. And also I was able to inform the press to get behind us on that. It took us 14 years, but by taking it to the people and also remembering what my elementary school teachers taught me to count, I realized we had more tenants than landlords. So we organized them in all parts of the state, and because of that organization, we were able to get a victory in terms of passing the first landlord-tenant bill in the state of Mississippi. So that's how you snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat.
Oh, yes, yes. Representative Glaize.
Well, because you guys already know I'm an educator, my focus has been and will continue to be that there is access for opportunities for all Georgians, and specifically Black and brown Georgians who need access without the load of loans. So in Georgia, there are several people, I believe, in the room who we both sit on higher ed and K through 12. We've been able to go back and do what should have never been undone. Number one is that we've got a Hope Scholarship. That Hope Scholarship started out need-based, and it started out at 100% of tuition. It's been years, and it went down to 72% on a dollar of our tuition. We're back at 100% restored hope. That's the name of the scholarship. We're there. All of our kids need it. And then we realized, of course, that there's a section of students in all states. That's our CD students, at least a 2.0, who we're not incentivizing to move forward, to take their skills and to build upon that and be marketable. And so we've got a REACH scholarship here in Georgia, and it was left up to each school system to raise their money and give that out. Well, of course, you know how that worked, right? Some counties did better than others, and rural counties and other counties just didn't do enough. And so last year, or this past legislative session, we took that onus upon ourselves and made sure that there was an appropriation in Georgia's budget to support those students, our C average students, and make sure not only do they get $10,000 in their 8th grade year to go forward, that it will incentivize them to complete high school and then have $10,000 sitting in a pot. So when they leave high school, they can go forward with the technical college system or any other system that will give them a degree, give them skill sets, and make them marketable. So we've done some good work, and we're going to keep doing that kind of good work. Our students matter, and what they have in their hands when they leave high school is important to us, because the best Georgia is when all Georgians can prosper.
All right, but I got to add a little something. I have to add a little something to that. When you talk about the school systems, each individually being responsible, how many school systems are we looking at? How many counties are in Georgia?
159.
Say it again.
159.
We have the most amount of counties behind Texas. Imagine the coordination. I don't think they work collaboratively.
Not at all. And so it was the responsibility of the state to come in and do what states do. And that's to take the onus and the responsibility of putting the money into the state so that all counties and all students fared equally to get these types of grants. C students, we took care of the B students and the A students, and we were leaving them out. And so I can tell you that is not part of Project 2025. That's part of Project People. And we moved it forward.
All right, I want to do a little bit of a spin on this question now, okay? So, Ashley. Neha and Jesse lifted up a lot of different wins. You are a Southerner. With some of the wins that we've had in the South, what does that tell you about who we need to be going forward, especially after this election?
Lightweight. Hey, y'all. I said hello. It is a blessing and a privilege to be on the stage with people who I hold in such a high regard. These are folks that would take a bullet for me and who I'd take a bullet for in real life. So the love that you see is not a performance. We love each other, this panel. And I think that's such evidence of the win that is the literal physical manifestation of 6 in this 10-year story, is that it has brought people together to love one another. Across our differences, our ideological differences, our geographic differences, our class differences, our gender and sexuality differences. 6 has built a family in the last 10 years that isn't just talking about our values, but being about our values. And if you didn't shout right there, then there's nothing I can say about who we are and who we are becoming that could have moved you. That was your moment. You missed your shout. I'll try to get you another one before it's done, but that was it. I also would be remiss if I didn't shout out my Outside Voices family, who I see all over this place. I love you. I see you. I'm so grateful for all you do. I love y'all, all of you. So, what are we supposed to be learning? I think there's a lot here to this question, and in some ways it's the bee in my bonnet these days. I'm not just a Southerner, I'm a Southern supremacist. I'm serious, I mean that. I think that as goes the South, so goes the nation isn't an opinion, it's a fact. And if you didn't know that before November 5th, hopefully you do now. Because you're about to get a real taste of what Southerners have been trying to, everybody up here is a Southerner in the opening plenary at 6, right? These folks have been saying for decades what could happen to this country if we didn't, as people that, whether you identify as a liberal or a progressive or a communist or an anarchist, whoever you are in this room, if we didn't dictate who we are as a country and who we are becoming, we were creating a vacuum that the far right was going to fill. And they did. And they have. So I think when we're talking about who we need, we were talking about this back in the green room, is that you're going to hear a lot of noise about who's important right now and who's to blame for this moment. Shout to me who's to blame for this moment. Black men, The working class, women, Latinos, Latino men, all the men. Fuck y'all. Y'all messed this up, right? All the men, right? Anybody else? The campaign, which is probably the closest to the truth. What? The media, yeah. The Democrats. Kamala herself. Russia. China. Right? Yeah, totally. Muslims. Palestinians. Joe Biden, man, that might be the closest to the truth we got so far. Right? So you're going to hear a bunch of hot takes about how we got here, who's at fault. And I think the challenge, some of us were talking about this at lunch, is that there's a whole bunch of truth in the middle, right? There's a whole bunch of truth in the fact that like multiple things actually are true at the same time. White men, y'all got some work to do with y'all's people, right? And it wasn't just white men, right? Movement, we've got some stuff that we need to have a conversation about because we created the vacuum that got us here, if we're being real honest, right? Those organizations that were too good to go talk to those rural hillbillies, folks like I like, folks that didn't think we should be organizing working class people, folks that spend more time talking to other organizers than talking to like regular everyday people and call it movement building, right? Politicians that won't take a risk or that think that they should get to define it. What is a risk? And don't get me wrong, y'all, like I got fam that legislate in the South. That's putting your life on the line sometimes down here, right? And we work with people who stand in front of bulldozers, right? Who literally fight landlords. And then, some of them voted for a landlord. That is true. Complicated contradictions, right? I think what we need, who we need to be in this time, and I hear our beloved Norma Wong in my head asking the question constantly of who are we and who are we becoming, right? We've actually got to put a definition to that. And not just in our values, but in our doing, right? Part of the reason we got here is because regular people don't believe us. Us. And they're not wrong, because we've gone to them and said, we love you. We know what's good for you. But we didn't ask them what they thought at all. Because some of us thought we were smarter than them. That our values made it matter that we could just like bulldoze over them with what we thought should be the best thing. So we've got to be humble. That's true. The contradiction is we have to be audacious. Right? We have to be realistic, and we've got to have a little faith. Right? We've got to, I hear Chokwe Lumumba in my head saying, if you don't love the people, you'll betray the people. Yes. And you can't love them if you don't trust them, right? So we've got to trust them. We've got to be in right relationship with them. We've got to be able to build the kind of power that can mobilize them to action in a time where even other so-called movement leaders are telling them to just take a break, sleep, rest, be demoralized, because this is demoralizing. But I see trans kids from Tennessee shutting down congressional bathrooms this week.
Yes, this week.
I see my sisters in struggle fighting for the ERA. I see folks planning their trips to the Hill in their states all over the South right now. So I hear my sisters and my siblings that are saying like, listen, we did our work. Now it's them other people's turn because y'all got us in this mess, and I deeply resonate. Trust, I would love a break. But lives really depend on the decisions that we make about who we are and who we're becoming right now. So who do I think we need? Everybody is the shitty answer to that question. The people that I like and the people that I don't. Because the reality is that it's gonna take a majority of us to stop this authoritarian threat that's happening in our states and on the federal level. The truth is that folks are going to do what they want to do anyway. Yeah. So some of us have to do the thing that we don't normally do to reach the folks that we don't normally get, right? And I'm asking for us as Six to really be intentional about making the decision to not just, as my dad says, do what we've always done and get what we always got. Yeah, now's our time to do something different for the sake of saving humanity as we know it in this country.
Thank you. I heard a lot. I heard also we have to be humble. We have to be audacious. We have to be humble. And we cannot freeze in this moment.
And some people will, like, right? Some of us are. Some of us are frozen, right? And we just have to be, can I tell the truth? I might make some of y'all mad, but can I say what I'm thinking?
Just go ahead and say it.
So, like, we just actually have to get better at being honest about where we're at and what we can do and can't do, right? Because honestly, how many of you feel like over the last 5 weeks, all you've heard is people asking you what we should do next? Wave at me. And how many of y'all are like, yeah, I know what it is? Somebody please wave at me. Like, you know, girl, I know what it is too. That's part of it. That's for damn sure. Buy me a drink, I'll tell you all about it. Philanthropy, I know y'all here, buy us drinks. You want me to save democracy, the least you can do is start me with a whiskey. But to your point, it's like, we gotta be straight up. It's like, if you can't do it right now, and you ain't got it, it is what it is, homie, whether it's okay or not. I think it's okay, but like, whether it's okay or not, you don't know. And that just is a concrete assessment of concrete conditions. But those of us that can figure it out need to right now, right? And it's gonna be imperfect. And guess what? When it's imperfect, y'all are gonna blame me again. You know how I know? Because that's what happened in 2020. And that's what happened in 2016, 2018, if we were here. You know, like, we know, we get it. The folks that do the work are gonna get the critique. That's just what comes, heavy as the head, right? So in this moment, what we need is people that are willing to, again, towards that humility and audacity, that can be humble enough to be like, I am imperfect, y'all. I mess up every day. I get it wrong every day. Every single day I mess up, right? And I'm also really fucking good at what I do. Both things are true at the same time, and it's true for all of you, right? So then what does that matter towards being in right relationship with the people that we need the most, right? Because what we need to do is be building with the people who are suffering the most, right? It's not just leaving the C and D students, right? And that's even still good, right? I'm trying not to leave the F students. I'm trying to not to leave the young people that don't go to school at all, right? Like, we're trying to get to those, the lowest and the deepest, right? How do we be in right relationship with them? It means not only admitting on the front end that I'm gonna mess up, because I am, but it means when I mess up, doing the same amount of energy to fix it with those folks as I did when I messed it up, when I was being audacious and thought I knew it all, right? So in this moment, we've got to come with some humble pie and be like, hey, man, there's some stuff we were supposed to do that we just didn't do. I'm sorry. I really am. And I am 10 toes down committed to doing everything in my power to minimize the harm. And even more than that, get on the offensive so that we can change the conditions so we never end up here again. That's what time it is on the clock of the United States, and certainly of all of our states.
Greisa. Ashley just shared it's going to take more than us. What does multiracial organizing in the South really take?
Buenas tardes, ¿cómo están? Okay. My name is Greisa Martínez Rosas. I'm undocumented, unafraid, queer, and unashamed. And no matter what Donald Trump says, Stephen Miller says, me and my people, we're here to stay. I think a couple of things have to be true before we answer that question. The first thing is to know and understand that whether you're talking about immigrant rights, whether you're talking about trans lives, whether you're talking about how we do the work to save our planet, underneath all of it, and we saw it in full sight in the election, is anti-Blackness. And the decision that we all continue to make, and voters made, and people that didn't vote made, about how we respond to that. So I just want to, if you're doing the work, any kind of work in the South, that needs to be like the North Star, is to ensure that that's part of our analysis, but it's also part of the solution. Black women have shown us time and time again They've saved us. You all saved us in this moment. You showed us the way as we move forward, which is why I follow Ash wherever she tells me to go. But it's also the reality that this is a moment for us to be, Jen Stowe at NDWA talks about this moment as one of clarity without certainty. Clarity without certainty. And what is clear in this moment of uncertainty is that if every movement has its own plan, if every issue has its own response plan that is not grounded in a shared vision of long-term power building, we will perish. Yes. If the immigrant rights movement is just thinking about immigrants in this moment, ain't gonna happen. The same thing for all, so I think how we do I follow you, where you told me how we do that here in the South, but what I do believe in this moment is that this isn't time for American heroes. The villain has been identified. People here in the South know its tricks. They see the snake and how it moves, where it buries itself in the night and how it strikes. So this moment is for one of humility, but also learning. But this is also then the time for us to define who are the heroes of this story. Who are the people that are ready to catch the snake and make sure that we're moving forward? And that is why, I'm so proud to be with all of you tonight, so proud to celebrate 10 years of Six, because you all are part of the people on the Gap. You said yes to leadership in this moment when it's hard to say yes to leadership in this moment. Tanjiwe McHarris talks about what is made more possible when we choose one another. And a part of this moment is like, I'm choosing you. Those state elected officials that have made sacrifices, that have decided to say yes to this moment. But it's gonna take for people to be bold, to be unapologetic, to be clear that like our movements are not siloed to one another, and the ways in which you can help us do that, I think is gonna be an important pathway forward.
Thank you, Greisa. Representative Glaize. So we're gonna keep in this theme. When you are governing from a minority-controlled position, how do you think about working with your opposition?
Well, first of all, you really do have to see them as needing you. Because if they're the only ones in the room making the decisions, so many Americans are going to be left out, left behind, and thrown away. So you have to see yourself essential to whatever the outcomes are. And so that means you walk in the room with courage and confidence that they're going to get it wrong unless you show up. And so that's the lens, to walk in the room. And someone said, well, you're a freshman, you're talking too much. And I said, no, I'm way over 60, so let me say this. I'm talking too much because I've lived and seen too much. And it is better for me to go to jail and have my head hit versus a 16-year-old, right? And so when I'm in the room, I'm looking for ways that we can get into a center where there is humanity and that they're sober. And what I mean by being sober is somebody has to sober you up when you have gotten drunk on power. And what that means is I literally come as a truth teller to tell you, if you won't do it for my children and my grandchildren and brown and yellow grandchildren and children, guess what's going to happen to yours? There's something what the old folks said, that the chicken's going to come home to roost. And what you want for yours, I want for mine, and I'm willing to fight for it. But we don't have to fight if we can legislate. What's best for your children, my grandchildren, and our legacies in a country that can literally stay free and not lose our wins. And so I will shame them in a minute. I don't have no shame in that. If you want your children to eat, my kids will eat. If you want your grandchildren to not be illiterate, mine cannot be illiterate. And matter of fact, let's get this straight. You learn so much from us. Africa is where everything started, mankind. And every philosopher and every part of medicine came out of Africa, what you learned. And so if you leave black and brown people out, you're going to leave so much out of history and just endowed capabilities. When you're looking for a cure for cancer, it's already done. What did the 10-year-old do this year? A 10-year-old African-American helped to find a solution for cancer on how to find it early. You lose too much when you leave folks out. So when I walk in the room, I want them to know it's confidence. How can you build EV plants all over Georgia and don't have water? I could have sent my 6-year-old grandson in to tell you that you needed water. But since you didn't let us in the room, now you got to figure out where you're going to find water, and anybody from Georgia can get that on your way out the door. You know what we're looking for to continue building EV plants, water. So don't spite your face when you know you got a need for eyes, a nose, and a mouth. I'm just talking real business. You're going to have to let other folk around the table. And the other folk that come in need to know that what you bring is not just important, but it's vitally important to the end result of humanity and what's at stake here. And that's our very lives. So it's confidence. I'll build a bridge. I will build a bridge if you let me. But if you don't, I'm still going to tell you where the bridge is going to fall down, because it's going to fall. So let's just do what we need to do, and that's build access for success. And then all of us have opportunities, and not just a few, because that's over.
I have
Yes.
the same question.
Same question.
I want to add a little more to yours, though.
Okay.
Not only,
Sure.
Senator Frazier, is, how do we think about working with our opposition, but also, what is it going to take for us to win in the conditions that we are about to inherit?
Right. We are winners. We're always going to be winners. When I was first employed by the Mississippi House of Representatives, we only had one black member out of 174 when I was first employed. When I was first elected, we increased that number to 13. My philosophy is that make your numbers count regardless of where you are. And how you do that? By knowing the rules, knowing the process. Let me give you a prime example. They appointed me to be chairman of the University and Colleges Committee, a minority and a very conservative Senate. Our governor has the power to appoint members to the college board. You have a 12-person college board serving 12-year terms. Our governor at the time was a very popular Republican governor. He appointed 4 white men to serve on that board, govern our state-supported universities. They knew that because of his popularity, those members would be confirmed. But I was the chair of the committee, and I knew the rules. Although I was outnumbered on the full committee, I had the power to appoint a subcommittee. And we killed it dead in that subcommittee. Know the rules and make your numbers count. The governor appealed that to the courts, tried to get me to bring those nominees out. But the courts sided with me. And also the public was able to see what was going on, and they sided with me also. So we're very successful in getting the governor to resubmit different nominees. His new slate included a white female, a black male, and 2 white males. That was a victory, although we had very small numbers at that particular time. Point number 2, as a legislator in the House, we wanted to make Dr. Martin Luther King birthday a state holiday. I introduced that bill 4 straight times, and it was killed by the Speaker and the Chairman of Appropriations 4 straight years. So what I did, I knew the rules. I knew that in our Constitution, each member had the right to request that each bill be read in its entirety before being voted on. During the deadline and week of appropriation, we had a very crowded calendar, thick calendar. I requested that every single bill be read at that time. And the Speaker was very concerned. He said, what's going on? He didn't know the rules himself. He didn't know that was in the Constitution. But I said, Speaker, you hired me to be your lawyer at one time, so I read the Constitution, so I knew what to do. So what they did, they tried to get me to stop reading bills. I said, no, read every single bill. And as a result of that, all of their major bills they supported died. They couldn't do anything about it. They called me in and said that we're going to address it next session. So the next legislative session, that bill making Martin Luther King Day a state holiday passed without a dissenting vote. So know the rules, know who you're working with, and also make sure that you include your people in the process because they make the difference. You can make a difference. I don't worry about being a superminority because I've always been a superminority when the Democrats are in charge also. But make your numbers count. And the best way to make your numbers count is to, first of all, know the rules, know what you're working with, and also keeping your people informed. Like I tell my colleagues, if you give me a deck of cards, I'm going to try my damnedest to run a Boston on you. And you can't do that if you know the rules and know the parties, and also be very deliberate in what you're doing. But like I said, don't worry about being a supermajority. Know the rules, know your people, stand for right, and things will work out okay.
So now I want to play spades with you when this plenary is done.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it. We always play spades at a HBCU.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
yes. Okay, Greisa. All right, so we've talked a little bit about working with our opposition. How do we make it make strategic sense? And I believe both Representative Glaize and also Senator Frazier have shared that. My question to you is a little bit less strategic and more about what are the tactics that you think are going to get us to a win someday?
I mean, I think that there are 3 things that we at United We Dream have been grounding on. The first one is what was just named, which is to ensure that we're listening and building trust with our people. The reason why we're here is that there's a trust gap between our movement and our government and the people of this country. And so part of it is just, there are no shortcuts to this. There are no shortcuts to people feeling like they're a part of our democracy, that their voice matters, that like what their own ability to take action, that they have power within themselves. And that is going to be the defining tactic for all of us as we move forward. The second one is to tell no lies and tell the truth, which is one of them in this moment is that there's some confusion. Some people think that we're ushering in a Trump 2.0, a conservative era of for the Republican Party. But we know the truth, right? That this is one step forward and towards moving our country towards authoritarianism. And if we do not tell the truth about that, if we don't move and act like it, not only will our people perish, but we will set forward a global consequences. And I just want us to like sit in the responsibility and the leadership opportunity for us to just move differently, to learn the rules, to figure out the loopholes, to be courageous and bold. And that's going to be the second thing. And the third is to partner with each other. As like I said, I'm going to be a broken record. The ecosystem and the infrastructure that we've built so far has been necessary, but insufficient. And it is incumbent upon us to look not only at the rapid response of this moment, but to think about how we're building the ecosystems and the infrastructure and the leaders and the people and the pipelines of leadership that we need to build, not only for the next 10 years, but the next 100 years. And then define what our generational work is for this next 10 years. Norma Wong talks about the long arc of strategy. We cannot be living in someone else's fairy tale and someone else's story, and we can't be activist number 2 and state legislature number 3 in Stephen Miller's play.
That's right, that's right.
I refuse to be that. I refuse to be, and my people refuse to be, just another actor in someone else's play. We are the protagonists of this moment. And I just want to be clear about something. Elections are important, necessary steps for a democracy, but they're not the win or the loss. Elections set the conditions, the political terrain for us to wage fights. This political condition and this terrain was the worst case scenario. I give you that. But it does not mean that the strategy ends. It does not mean that the goals shift. And it does not mean that the partnerships that we have so been wanting to build have to stop. It is important to take a sober assessment, to think about like how could we have done better, but the election itself is not a win or a loss. It is the terrain in which we are operating in. The terrain dictates what are the right tactics, what are the right tools, what are the right stories. And the terrain also matters for real people. Right before coming here, I was on the phone with one of our members. She's from Philadelphia, and she wanted to talk through her deportation plan with me. Like, what does it mean, like actually mean, if I am detained? What does it actually mean for me and my family? What detention center would I likely be sent to so that I can have my family be ready? And that's the same story that trans kids are having with the conversations that trans kids are having with their families, that black women's bodies, black women are having in their communities. And that is, that's what's at stake at this moment. And, you know, I would be remiss if I would not bring my people into the space, undocumented queer immigrant people, and call you to action. This is a moment for bold leadership. This is the moment for you to look for the loopholes, for the budget processes, to ensure that immigrants, queer people, that we define, that we're able to find sanctuary with one another.
That's right, that's right, that's right.
Sanctuary.
That's right.
You're not gonna do it alone. We're ready to be able to flank, but we also are not the ones that are elected. We elected you. And so as in terms of the tactics, I think part of it is just choosing one another, creating spaces where we're like sharpening each other, and then we're creating the conditions for us to be able to bring about that 100-year vision where, for me, the vision is 3,000 young people pouring out of buses at the mountains at the Highlander Center. They have orange shirts. It's gonna be 60 years from now. They will be coming together at the Highlander Center because they will be putting together how they're gonna implement a global accord where nations all across the globe have decided that immigrants will be able to be free to move, free to stay, free to thrive, free to transform. And there'll be music and food, and your descendants will be there too. My descendants will be there. And so that is the type of clarity that we need in this moment, the vision as we're moving forward, and not just defining ourselves from the conditions that the current political terrain sort of gives us in this moment.
Thank you, Greisa. Yes. So I just want to say, you know, one or two things. One, I will say a small story is that the day after the election, my mother called me and asked me to look up my citizenship paperwork so she could compare it to hers because she was naturalized. But technically, I get in under the age of 18. And the first thing she said was, okay, well, at least they'll come for me before they come for you. Because that's where mothers start, right? Like, okay, I think, and I'm like, well, they're really coming for all of us. But also, like, that was her first thing is, let me just call, send me a copy of it. I just want to see. Because everyone is starting to make these plans. right? I also want to say that there's been a lot of conversation about terrain. There's been a lot of conversation about the power of strategy, right? The power of information, the power of people and understanding the moment, the terrain. I want to take a step back for a second before I pivot and talk about State Innovation Exchange and a conversation we were just having yesterday. Greisa, you talked about, this is about authoritarianism. It's not actually about one party or the next. We are thinking broader, long-term, the real impact, the real challenge and fight ahead of us. And I have to say, many people right now are, this is real. I remember earlier this year, it was, oh, what's the worst that can happen? And people are like, oh, shit, it could be really bad. And it's like, yes, that's how authoritarianism and fascism works. This is actually just the beginning. And I want to give credit in the space that we are in to SIX. Many people do not know that SIX developed a strategic plan more than 4 years ago in preparation of authoritarianism. Because there's a reason we all took the time to be here. SIX has been advocating for collaborative governance in advance of this moment because they are doing what Greisa talked about, which is what is our vision 100 years from now, and working backwards from there. So I just want to make sure that, I guess it's credit for credit's sake, that there are safe spaces where these hard conversations didn't start in the last 3 weeks, but have been happening for years. And SIX isn't the only space, but we are here right now. I just want to give that credit where credit is due. So I want to pivot now to Ashley. We talked about just the intentionality about if you know what to do next, cool. If you don't, say it, it's okay. And then finding the people who are doing the work who feel like, oh, I know what comes next. I'm trying to find the person who's like, I do. And then going from there. There's, I think, another piece to this that I would love for you to talk to. There are folks who are tempted to limit their organizing and governing work, right? To move from a forward stance offensive position to one of defense and a defensive position to trying to mitigate harm, right? Just to focus on harm reduction. Now, this is important, right? This is necessary. And also, we have to be able to move forward with dreaming and building irresistible futures. Okay, you see that plug with our communities. So my question to you is, how do we make space for both proactive work when the defensive work feels so urgent and overwhelming?
Yeah. How many people are like, I'm just on the defense, friend? Like, ain't nothing you can say to convince me otherwise. I'm just trying to survive this next 2-year term, whatever. I see you. And I appreciate you. At least you're being honest. I was talking to, I don't know, it could have been the press, it could have been movement people, I really don't remember, but somebody over the last week. And, it was funders. I was talking to funders, democracy funders at that. And they said, Ashley, what do you want us to do? What are we supposed to be doing? And, some people are telling us we need to just go underground and be covert with our funding. And other people are saying we need to just spend it all out. I'm like, well, I'm an abolitionist, and if you don't have a strategy, that is just a tactic. And I don't know what we do if y'all spend it all out, especially if we don't get to tell you where to put it, right? Long story short, they say, what do you want us to do? And I said, well, honestly, all I'm asking for any of us to do is just enough. I'm not asking people, privileged or not, to do anything more than what you can do excellently. So if all you can do right now is excellently defend, do it. I like that. Do it. Do it like lives depend on it, because they do. But if you dare to be offensive, again, it's going to be imperfect. But if you dare to mobilize, to take a risk, to put your neck out there, I promise you there's millions of people just waiting on you to do it. And the second that you do, they're going to flank you. I'll tell you my own story, right? I didn't want to be an executive director. I had no interest. I was a great Southern organizer. I was getting to go to every Southern state and help people implement their programs and campaigns, and we were winning. It felt amazing. And then I got asked to be an executive director, and I said, I don't even know. One, I don't want to, and two, even if I did, I don't know how to do it. I'm going to mess it all up. And so guess what people did? They helped me. And when I messed it up, because I always mess up, they helped me. So if I had gone in and been like, and what many people are doing in this season, of going to regular people and being like, we got this, I know what I'm doing. They'd be like, well, one, you're full of shit or we wouldn't be here. Second of all, they're like, okay, this kid is trying. They're trying to be in right relationship. And I trust that she's going to do her best. And when she fails, I'm going to help her clean it up because I want her to be good. Right? Your humility is what allows for your audacity. Not your audacity then requires you humility. It's the opposite, right? So I get it. It feels safe to be more conservative in a time where fascists and authoritarians are running things. I get that. But what I can tell you is that I wouldn't be here on this stage if every black Southerner, if every queer Southerner, if every working class Southerner had been like, you know what, I'm just going to build my little mutual aid thing and keep it moving. Right? If electeds that look and live and love like me hadn't taken some risk, if they had always said, you know what, we're fine with being the minority, we don't care about actually having governing power. In what world? How am I you want me to flank you as an elected, but you want me to go home and be like, it's actually okay, we're just going to always be the minority. Because that feels like winning, right? My people are looking for folks that have the audacity to believe that they deserve every good thing. My people are folks that believe that we can take a risk together and that actually us choosing each other, as Tenjiwe said, allows for impossible things to become possible. And even a step further, that the only reason I think that some of this shit is impossible is because a white, rich dude told me so. Right? What would you believe that you could do if white, capitalist, able-bodied men, sometimes able-bodied men, hadn't told you that you couldn't, right? If the right wing, in fact, sometimes your own Democratic Party leadership told you that it was impossible. Y'all better join you a party that believes in your power. You say it one more time for the people in the back. Y'all better come on into the Working Families Party.
I heard the plug.
And listen, that don't mean you don't still run as a Democrat. I live in Tennessee. I'm realistic. And what's real is if you do, we got you. I promise I'll flank somebody that'll take a risk, even if I don't agree with them, right? For the sake of my people having every good thing. So what I would say is, to G's point, know the time, place, and conditions that allow for you to take risks beyond what you think is possible. Because not only is doing what's sufficient or doing what's necessary, neither one of them is enough anymore. Now we have to reach for the impossible things because a whole lot of what used to be possible under a fascist becomes impossible if you listen to them tell it, right? So now's the time for you to know the time, place, and conditions so you can be audacious in what you're willing to do for the sake of the survival of all of us, right? Don't settle for being the minority. Get down with some people who believe in your power and want to build it, right? And know your particular role inside of the ecosystem. Be in the ecosystem intentionally. Play your role excellently, right? Because I promise, if you do it on the defense and you're wrong, and I do it on the offense and I'm right, you still get liberation. And if I do it on the offense and I fail, but you did it on the defense, guess what? I still have another day to fight, right? So maybe we might need each other in this moment. And instead of arguing about which one of us is the more correct one, we could just all be really fucking good at what we do. Yeah.
So you didn't ask me to summarize, but I shall. What I heard was collaborative governance.
I mean, It ain't rocket science. It's finger painting a little bit, y'all, and it's also not the first time.
That's right.
Right? Y'all listen to the Ultra podcast with Rachel Maddow. Y'all listen to, what is it, Star Spangled Fascism. Y'all have read a book about SNCC or, the communists in Alabama in the fucking 1920s. This is not a new conversation, y'all. Not down here. And I imagine that's not true. It's easy to put the South under a microscope as like the best or the worst case scenarios. It would depend on who you ask. Right, but if we were just breaking it down on the federal level, right? You know where Nixon is from? Do you know? Let me give you another one. You know where Reagan is from? Where? Cali, right? Illinois, you actually right, but Cali, yes. Right? And Trump is from what? Trump is from Queens. We didn't do that. Y'all did. Some of y'all, not all of y'all. My girlfriend's from Brooklyn. She's like, we didn't do it either, right? So we gotta be real that again, we would not be on this stage but for the win. And it's also helps us get clear about the assessment, because what folks are saying right now is we lost, when actually it wasn't. Frankly, can I be honest? Because I'm about to make some of y'all mad. It wasn't my candidate either time. Right? My base wasn't excited really hardly at all. And if we were being honest, most of how we got here is the blowback to the things we got right. Mm-hmm. Y'all, it's that y'all did win. Some of y'all that are right here right now won. And the right is angry about it, and the corporate Dems are too. Mm-hmm. Right? What actually happened was we built the largest social movement in U.S. history in 2020. And we did it together, very literally, us in this room. And they are mad about it. What happened was y'all told these white Christian nationalists that they were in an existential crisis because brown people are having babies. Right? And they're like, oh, God, take it over. It's the last gasp, y'all. So I don't feel like a loser at all. I feel like I'm winning, and the hateful minority in this country is losing their shit over my win. Mm-hmm. So why would I be small now? That's right. Why would we be small now? Defend with some bass in your chest. Right? Offensive, and be offensive with some bass in your chest, whatever you choose. I'm not, again, I think we need a multi-tactical, multi-ideological, multi-sectoral, inside-outside strategy. And right now, we could bet on just surviving it, or we could do the impossible thing and break the back of the two-party system, and y'all actually have some power outside of just the Dems bossing you around all the time, telling you what you can and cannot do. Mm-hmm. Or just making it a situation where you just do what is sufficient to survive another right-wing attack. And I think now more than ever, we have the opportunity to make impossible things possible.
Thank you. All right, Representative Glaize. So I think Ashley just kind of grounded us in the South. And I love that California and New York accountability comment.
I have California and New York friends.
It's too late. It's already done. But this question is for both Representative Glaize and then following Senator Frazier. Organizing in the South looks different. It looks different. A lot of national organizations will create a policy handbook. That doesn't necessarily, that doesn't necessarily work here. How we do our work when we talk about organizing, when we talk about advocacy, when we talk about electorally, right? It's all relational and it's all community-based. So my question first to Representative Glaize is, what lessons would you share with people in other states? Because I like how this is, what lessons would you share with folks in other states who will be governing in a more restrictive context than they've ever had before? What was the advice you'd give to the rest of the country that's about to have a Southern experience?
Wow. First of all, I'll start with two words, soul food. And soul food is two things. So one thing that I did this time that I thought if nothing else works, we'll start with soul food. So Soul Food Sundays was to get intergenerational folks together on Sunday around soul food so we could talk about soul food. What is it going to take for us to move forward as a people so that people-powered politics work for us? And so we got 13 to 18-year-olds in the room. Then we got college-age students and students who did not go to college and didn't want to, and working at Amazon, and they were all the way up till one of the oldest was 91, and she wore her T-shirt that had the check or the out of Alabama. In order for her to vote, she had to pay a poll tax. So she had that receipt on the front of her. And so what we did was to open the doors to say, this is your government, and this government should be responsive to your needs. And we set them 5, 6 generations at a table. And we set the prompts there. And then after they discussed, and 13-year-olds learned from 31-year-olds and 71-year-olds, we allowed the youngers to get up and to talk about what they've learned and what they want to continue to learn. And so what we did was powered a base of intergenerational, concerned citizens who were engaged so that they know that they must walk hand in hand. It is not good enough for the middle to know what's important without the youngins coming right behind them knowing the same thing. And so information is the beginning of transformation. And planning and strategy starts with trust. And when you sit down with Soul Food to talk about soul food and humanity, what you begin is to start a power base again. And so I think that is important. And then we fed into them. This is where we started, counting marbles in a jar to try to get the right to vote. And now when you turn 17 and a half, what will you do? Will you go and register? And will you learn about your candidates? And will you then go and vote? And not only that, maybe you'll be the 25-year-old that I met in the room today who is a senator at Rhode Island. I don't know if she's in the audience, but she's from Georgia, and she is a senator in Rhode Island, the only African-American. Stand up, sis. Yes. Because we want to empower that. People-purposed power. And so I just close out and say that all of us are important in the fight. And your likes and my dislikes and all of that foolishness is just what that is. It's foolishness. We literally won the 1965 Voting Rights Act because we were together. And there were 13-year-olds, and there were Catholics, and there were queers. Everybody was there to take the wins. We've got to decide that the wins are big enough and they're important enough that you don't have time to hate. Remember, you in Georgia, and Keisha Lance Bottoms, the former mayor, would say this all the time. We're in Atlanta. We're too busy to do good work, to be hating. So if you're still hating, you are off the beaten path of any kind of success. And if you think you are, look up at your funeral. You're not going to have that many people there because that's where hate gets you. It moves people away instead of bringing them internally and next to you to support the real work of humanity. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would say that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I grew up in Mississippi. Ross Barnett was the governor when I was in school. He tried to keep James Madison from integrating Ole Miss. I remember Lester Maddox in Georgia. They were symbols of the Democratic Party. They were very hateful oppressors at the time. One of the persons who stood out that I admire was Fannie Lou Hamer. She saw the injustice was taking place. She saw that the Democratic Party did not represent her values. She said she was sick and tired of being sick and tired. She didn't hold back from challenging the system. She took her own Freedom Democratic Party to the National Democratic Convention to unseat the Mississippi Democrats because they did not represent her people, her values. They were able to take risks. They said that this is not right. Don't be afraid to lose something, because if you challenge the system, more than likely you're going to lose something, but gain something for everybody else. But look at what happened back in the 60s, how they organized. One thing that was very critical to me at that time was the establishment of the freedom schools during Bloody Summer. Those freedom schools taught people how to, first of all, protest. They also taught people about the rights they possessed as citizens. They empowered the people to take a step on their own to change things on their behalf. They identified different organizations that would be very helpful and identified different stakeholders. And they brought all of them together because they knew that change was coming. But if change was going to come, they would have to be the change agents. They didn't depend on the governor of Mississippi to be a change agent for them, Lester Maddox in Georgia. They said, we must do it ourselves. So they empowered themselves by getting knowledge and also spreading the knowledge to other people throughout our area. And because of them organizing, they were able to touch Congress to pass laws to protect their rights. They were able to address Mississippi legislature in terms of pointing out some of the things that we needed in our state. But don't reinvent the wheel, because we have role models who made a big difference and who brought about change. Just do what they did because they got results. But as a result of what they did, we went from having no black representation in the Mississippi legislature in terms of being the #1 state in terms of black elected officials. We also made strides in creating millionaires in our state. We knew that you couldn't have civil rights without having silver in some people's pocket. So we're able to create a condition where they could prosper also, because we knew that economic wealth, power, along with political power, would bring positive results to the people we represent. So identify those people back then, our people, because they made things happen. Don't be afraid to take chances, because if you don't, you're going to find yourself falling further and further back again. Just go forward, be brave. Don't be afraid to lose, because if you lose, somebody's going to win. Don't reinvent the wheel. Just go forward and just do what we did back then.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to speak honestly with the crowd. I'm a little bit at a crossroads. Officially, we are finished at 3:45, but the timer says 8 more minutes. So I'm like, which truth, which reality do I lean into? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the difference. I already know that all of you are going to want to talk to these amazing panelists when we're done. That's one. Two, this has been a good heavy, but a good heavy conversation. So I'm gonna pivot. They gave me a mic. I'm gonna pivot. It's a question that gets asked a lot, and I'm still gonna ask it, because it matters, because we have to model for people, okay? I'm gonna start with Greisa and work our way this way. It does not have to be complicated, but it has to come from the heart. What are you doing to find joy in this moment? See, when you ask it real, then it's harder to answer.
So real. You know, at the beginning of this year, I lost my dad. He was deported 20 years ago and was never able to come back because he had a permanent bar. And the joy of being able to celebrate his life and allow myself a place to grieve. One of my spiritual guides and teacher, she reminded me that it's okay, it's actually strategic for us to be in a place of grief, because we're gonna be required to be clear-minded. And so for joy, for me, is to allow myself to be held by the people that love me. And when I went to go bury my dad, it was the first time the second time I'd been into Mexico in 25 years. And for the first time, I saw the Mexican tradition of how we bury our dead. There were flowers and food and tears and tequila and whiskey. And so the act of choosing one another, that's the joy, even especially in the grief. Joy and love, not the love that's like fluffy and like, you know, the not real one, but it's the love that, as Nikki Giovanni, rest in power, reminded us, is like, it's that love that's like a bench that you can sit on, that can hold you when you're tired. And that's my joy.
Ashe. Ashley, what are you doing to bring you joy?
One is just like, again, just a gritty desire to not let white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy make me lose myself. I just refuse. You know, my kid, you know, and then my mom passed on October 3rd, and then we had an election to lose or win on the 5th, a month later. And part of what brought me joy was seeing hundreds of people in my mom's front yard on the land that her dad raised her on, that her dad had been raised on, and watching Greisa and my movement family in heels in the grass in the front yard, passing out plates of like barbecue and like fried fish to hillbillies who had no idea that she was the ED of the largest organization of undocumented young people in the country. That's what brings me joy, is my family. And Greisa and many of you are amongst them. I find joy in asking more questions than having answers. Being like, does this thing that people are saying that there's an echo chamber around, who does it serve and where did it come from? Does it give my people more power or no? Asking a lot of questions brings me joy. Being curious, right? Remembering that excuses are monuments of nothingness that build bridges to nowhere. And of those people that use those tools, they are incompetent and matter of no one. Remembering that excuses make me incompetent brings me joy. Right? Remembering that it's easier to tell other people what they should be doing in this moment than being clear about what I should be doing in this moment. Electeds, I hear you do it all the time. I say, what's the plan? And you say, well, y'all should be getting my constituents to call me. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? So knowing my role and playing it excellently brings me joy. Being in an accountable relationship brings me joy. Remembering that I actually get to decide, not just like suspending my power. That actually I get to, if I so choose, I actually get to say who we are and who we are becoming. Just because I am. And you could too, should you take the assignment. That brings me joy. And us doing it and getting it right brings me joy. Us defining that who we are becoming is us, is more ourselves. Whew, that's all you could have shouted right there. You missed it again. I told you I'd give you another opportunity. I'm going to give you another one, that getting to decide what democracy is. Where's my home? I wonder if she's still in here. I had a homie be like, you know, words mean things. All right, I see you. Shout out to the homies. You know, like words mean things, and democracy is a thing. We are either doing it or not doing it. It is a practice, not just a value. Solidarity is too. It's something that we do. Love is a doing thing, right? So we get to decide, and when we decide and we practice it well, and when we fail at it, but we learn the lesson, that brings me joy. Never underestimating the audacity and impact of a mediocre white man allows me more space to find joy, and never underestimating what the power of my people can do. I find joy, I find healing in the winning, and I feel committed to doing that. So I find I'll have even more joy as we win more things that we can sustain and enjoy. I'm not just, you know, I feel like Highlander often gets described when I was there as a place that trains movement fighters. And I used to always correct people that I'm not just trying to train a bunch of good fighters, I'm trying to train good winners, right? And so I'll say this and I'll shut up because I know we're at time, is that if you are coming into this space feeling a little defeated, wave at me if you're feeling a little defeated. It's okay, I do too. Like, a loss is a loss, right? We can admit that. I get that. But I also think that there's never a moment in the story of telling about wins than the time where you lose and you get up and you study and you train and you run the steps like Rocky, and then you knock his ass out the next time you get an opportunity to be in the ring. And I want to tell you that I promise that if you choose to get back up, that there are literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people in this country who are ready and waiting to follow your lead. And knowing that you will brings me joy.
Ashe, thank you. Representative Glaize, what are you doing to bring you joy in this moment?
Soul food, yes.
Fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, collard greens.
You better talk about it.
Good cornbread. Is my husband here? He makes the best cornbread in the world. Family. My family is the reason that I stay anchored and I stay steady. We lost our 41-year-old son in 2022, and then my faith asked me, are you going to lay down and stay depressed, or are you going to get back up? When I got back up, I saw this position open, a new position, a new seat. I came from local government, so I was used to getting wins. Came into a voluntary apartheid situation where a majority of the town had turned black and brown, and yet the folks who were still governing did not look like us. So we brought in a slate. I thought, why go one when you can go three? And so I got back up with that determination and came into the State House. And I thought, how many bills can I run in a few years and get across the line? I said, probably not many. But how many folks across the line that I might impact them to do the right thing? And I thought, I probably can do that. And so last year we had a bill to reduce housing credits, and the ones that they wanted to leave in place, we said, okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's good. And then I said, no, it ain't good enough. So, because they left one class of folks out, and that's our disabled folks. And I thought, let me just go to the well and just say, I can't vote for it. I can't vote against it. But you got 3 days before sign or die and get it right. And they were like, no, we can't do that. It's already passed on the Senate side. I was like, well, you don't want to do the right thing about your disabled people in your family? Because I want you to do the right thing about disabled folks in my family and all the other families. Well, I'll tell you, that bill did pass, and it went disabled developers got that 100% in Georgia. Just having that opportunity, those are the wins that bring me joy. Making sure that my kids in June who are going to summer school, who are in elementary school, get wins in literacy. Because if they're literate, they're gonna be able to get more wins and more wins and more wins. So I can go to a multinational company that doesn't align with my values and say, I'll take some money, and they give it to me. So that I make sure kids literate. Because one thing we agree about is a literate workforce. So find where you can win and then turn it. Don't allow people to say, just because we don't align here, I can't get your resources and put them in my community to make my community work. So I say that that's my superpower, and that's where I live. So when folks ask, what have you done lately, my community can tell you. They don't necessarily know what I do at the State House, but they know that they're engaged in local government. They know that they're being fed. They know that there's some support for them to pay their light bill, the gas bill. Those are the wins that the wind keeps pushing these arms up to come back and do it in the face of oppression and suppression in Georgia.
Thank you, Ashe. Thank you. Senator Frazier.
What brings me joy, looking in the eyes of my two grandchildren, Kauai and Christopher, seeing just how blessed they are, and seeing their burning desire to make life better for those around them. My granddaughter was studying the Civil War in elementary school. She came to me and said, Paw, did you fight in the Civil War? But I'm glad she's thinking. But allowing them to live in a world where they can freely think, freely be who they are, and also make choices that's going to make this world better, not only for themselves, but also for the world around them.
Thank you, Senator Frazier. I'll take another third point of privilege for those who are keeping count. What is bringing me joy right now is choosing who I want to work with, choosing where I want to erase the lines, choosing where I'm going to be audacious, choosing how I want to use my time in service and in dedication to a world that I believe we can have. That is giving me a lot of joy right now. So we are officially 5 minutes and 33 seconds and counting over. Can we just have a final round of applause for this very thoughtful, vulnerable, and generous with their time and expertise panel? Thank you all very much.